Welcome to Rappler Talk. I'm Raisa Serafika from Rappler Civic Engagement Arm Move PH. Today we're featuring a Filipino student from the Columbia Journalism School. Just last week, 23-year-old Mariel Padilla learned that she won a Pulitzer Award while at one of her classes at the graduate school. Can you share with us that moment when you learned that you won the Pulitzer Award?
Sure. So I was sitting in class, and I knew that the Pulitzer Awards were happening 2 floors below me. And the students were invited, but I remember I couldn't go because I had to be in class. And I just remember I was taking notes while my professor was talking. But one of my friends across the table texted me in the middle of class, and she was like, "Did you just win a Pulitzer?" And I was like, "I don't know." She was like, I think you did. And then my boss texted me from last summer, and he was like, "Congratulations, you're a Pulitzer winner." So then we kind of just freaked out together.
I know that up to 60 journalists actually worked in that story. What was your involvement in that report?
Yeah, so it was a full newsroom effort where for 1 week all 60 people in the newsroom contributed. And so I personally had to go to the jails every morning and collect all the arrest slips that were related to opioid or drug usage, and I created a database, and I just put all the information in the database so that the other reporters could look back at that if they needed more information.
From that experience, what was your most memorable moment going back to the jail every day? Is there a moment that really stuck with you?
It just got to be so normal going to the jails every day, and I think the main thing that sticks out to me is just how much I saw, how many arrest slips there were every day. I think that was really surprising. And then some of the ones that stick out to me are the ones that involve children. I just remember reading those and being really impacted by those.
Speaking of, from your experience at Cincinnati Enquirer, what do you think is the importance of local reporting in journalism?
I think local reporting is so important. I think that the people reporting should know the people in the community, and I think that especially with topics as sensitive as the opioid epidemic here, it took journalists who know this community and who have been working on this topic for years, and I think that really helped keep the report honest and sensitive.
How did you get into journalism, by the way? What's particularly with journalism that attracted you?
Yeah, so I was an English major in college, and I took a couple journalism classes, but I wasn't sure if it was for me until I took a local reporting class, actually, and I knew that I loved reading and writing, and I knew that I wanted to help people, but I didn't realize that journalism can do that until I reported on local elementary kids who needed more food at school, and the raising lunch prices, and just all of those things. And I realized that what I wrote actually helped people, and that was just the most amazing feeling to me. And I was like, this is what I want to do.
Oh, that's very interesting. So, going back to the special report from Cincinnati Enquirer, how did the community actually responded to the story, or how did they react?
Yeah. I haven't heard any negative feedback from the community, but I also haven't been talking to everyone in the community. Yeah. But from my impression, I think that the community was really grateful that this was reported on, and I think a lot of people, even though they lived in Cincinnati, didn't realize the extent of the problem.
Yes.
And then the people who were impacted by the problem, I think, were just grateful that it was being talked about in a way that humanized them still. And so I just think that the general reaction from the public was positive.
Going back to your Pulitzer win, bagging a Pulitzer Award is a dream shared by many journalists. What do you feel that even as an intern or student, you've already won that kind of award?
Yeah, I feel like I still don't believe it a little bit. I was just talking to another intern last night, and she was talking about whether she should put it on her resume, and she was like, I don't even know if this is. It doesn't feel real, and I'm just so grateful to the Enquirer that they put the interns on the byline. I mean, now a lot of places do that, and I think that it's just an amazing thing to have, and I'm just grateful for it, and it's pushing me to keep working hard.
Currently, here in the Philippines and even the U.S., journalism is an embattled industry. With disinformation online and fake news, aren't you discouraged by these new challenges in the field of journalism?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so. I think that first, I think that fake news and disinformation has always been around. But I think that, especially now that it's being talked about so much, it's actually more reason for me to want to be a journalist. And I know a lot of journalists here at school that were actually motivated and pushed by the fake news talk. And I think that the more disinformation there is out there, the more truth needs to be told. And I think that a lot of good journalists are really motivated by trying to do good work.
Jumping off from that, what would you advise student journalists or aspiring journalists younger than you are right now?
I would just say to stay curious. I think that the biggest thing for me is that I love learning and I'm always curious about things, and that's like the number one thing that drives me to be a journalist, and always ask questions, and always just respect people, be kind to people, but stay loyal to the truth, I think is the biggest thing.
You're graduating this May, right?
Yes, a couple weeks actually.
What are your plans after graduation?
So I just accepted a postgraduate fellowship here at Columbia University. So I'll be working with Dean Sheila Coronel, and she's actually a Filipina journalist too. Yeah.
So what will you be doing? What will you be tackling?
Yeah, the details are still being worked out, so I'm not really sure how much I can say, but I do know she has a project in mind related to the Philippines, actually.
How did your experience at Cincinnati Enquirer and reporting for the local newspaper shape your views now that you're finishing your studies?
So I think I grew up in Indiana, which is right near Cincinnati, and that's in the middle Midwest. And now that I live out on the East Coast in New York, I think I've been thinking a lot about the types of stories we tell and who we're telling the stories about. And so I think that my experience at the Enquirer has pushed me to think about whose stories I choose to tell and how a lot of people don't get the opportunity to be heard. And so just as a journalist, thinking about those things whenever I go out to report or what to write about.
What would you tell veteran journalists from your perspective in local news reporting and from a youth? What would you tell veteran journalists in the mainstream media, especially that since you said there are many things that you've learned from local news reporting?
I don't know. I think it might be things that veteran journalists already know, and I'm just realizing this because I'm new, but I think that thinking about what is always being covered in the news and why it's being covered, and kind of just reevaluating the spaces where there are holes and where people aren't given a voice in the conversation. And I don't necessarily think that that's not happening.
Yes.
I just think that it's good if we keep thinking harder about what we're doing.
It was nice talking to you, Marielle. Congratulations on your Pulitzer win. Again, this is Raisa Serafica for Rappler Talk.